Asura's Wrath, gaming's greatest attempt at making anime, and at times far outshining and transcending the genre. And Final Fantasy XVI, gaming's most mediocre rehash of tropes told in the most boring way possible. Perhaps I've already spoiled my opinion, but today I'm going to try to convince you which of these epics is art and which is fart. I'll start off with the fact that I'm not an expert, but I do have two perfectly working eyeballs if I'm wearing glasses, and I have a feel for aesthetics. What I am, though, is a writer and a creator. Analyzing storytelling is my passion, and one of these characters excels at mixing design and story with their character writing, and the other is... As a preface, I need to say that I haven't played FF16 to completion. I've played the demo and seen some cutscenes and icon fights, but that's all. And if that's enough for you to believe that all my upcoming criticisms are invalid, fine. But know that most of my complaints here are purely visual. Regardless, I prepped for this video by watching a few other videos on Fernical Phalange 16. A fair gradient of negative and positive, but I always find that negative views on something so popular like this are usually the most honest. And honestly, I almost wanted to stop making this video after seeing these takes. They really brought this dragon down to earth for me. They made it seem like some normal, if not mediocre game. But then Civet, one of my favorite YouTubers, compared it favorably to Asura's Wrath, and nothing excites my blood more than people being wrong on the internet. Now, excuse me while I destroy this man's sense of fashion. What is the purpose of character design? Well, besides having a character be more than a featureless stick figure, is to find the complex mix between writing and visuals that's able to stand out on its own. And I believe Clive's main design fails to find that mix. I believe that Clive Rossfield's design is one of the most bland for video game protagonists in recent memory. And I understand that it's supposed to be reminiscent of his connection with Ifrit. Oh, I'm sorry, E-Feet. But what does any of it say about his character? About his decade of being a slave? About his love for his brother and friends? It's edgy and cool for seemingly the sake of it, his torso and head being the only unarmored parts of him not being explained, or indicative of his character. Look at Velvet Crow from Tales of Berseria. Very similar on a surface level, red and black, ragged with spikes, but Velvet's tattered and dark appearance is informative of her character and personality. By the time she wears this, she's been in prison for years. Her only source of anything but being a prisoner is basically being a garbage disposal. She's made to eat monsters thrown into her pit to survive. She has no time to care about fashion, decorum, or comfort because she's on a hate-fueled revenge mission against the baddies. Her design perfectly represents her character and her place within the narrative. Clive's is quite the opposite. He's supposed to be a leader, a force of hope in the world, but he's wearing all these dark, edgy clothes that make him look like a villain. You could say that that's the point, that he's technically the villain to the ruling bad guys. Okay, well, why doesn't Jill do the same? What about Joshua? Besides, it looks cool. I doubt there's a substantial answer. Ironically, his appearance is indicative of the game, appealing only on a surface level. I have much more to say about Claude here, but this is supposed to be art versus fart, not Berseria versus fart, so let's get to Asura's Wrath. Who is Asura? Honestly, I don't know. He's a robot, he was able to have a kid, he was able to die, and then come back to his body, but I think that was more of a mantra thing, but whatever. Asura was one of the 8 Guardian Generals set to defend the world from creatures called Vagoma. Asura is a brawler, opting to fight with his hands, but instead of using any sort of technique, he just makes a fist and hurls at anything too stupid to not get out of the way. All of this is represented in his design. He wears little to no armor for mobility, and simply because he doesn't need it. His pant legs are asymmetrical to show he doesn't care about his appearance. His hair spiked back to show he's always meeting foes head on. And that's useful in making his many and varied facial animations easily readable, even in the most action-packed moments. All in all, his design is simple, yet meaningful. A well-done showcase of blending character and visuals. Fucking art, if I've ever seen it. Even his stance is telling of his character, all hunched over and ready to pounce, like a wild animal with no grace or elegance to his movements. Yet again, a sharp contrast from Fatal Farsi 16. Clive's stance is this weird in-between of ready for action and lax, without really being either. Funnily enough, it's a perfect in-between of Gran and Sandalphon's from Grand Blue Fantasy vs. Rising, which look much, much better, by the way. Him holding his sword in his backhand can be seen as a sign of confidence, perhaps the same reason he doesn't wear protection on his head or torso. But that is contradictory to the world and tone of Final Fantasy XVI, which is supposed to be a lot more dark and serious. But then that is contradicted by ridiculous shit like this. Yeah, I swear no one gives a shit about tone anymore. Wait, what game is this again? Oh, yeah. Now, Clive was recently and ungodly disappointingly introduced as the first guest character Tekken 8, and the only good thing to come of this was a way, and the fact that you can put Clive in something better. But I tried many different styles with him, and even if I got him in something visually appealing, it still only works for him on a surface level, since there's no character underneath the surface. By the way, can't wait to do this to him in Tekken 8. Speaking of Miguel, it's insane how much more emotive this guy is to that lame, droll, grumpy sap. I'd like to say this is on purpose, like the years of being a slave totally stunted his ability to emote. But even when he does emote, it's still dull. Or incredibly hilarious. Addendum, holy shit, he can emote. I've just seen that one scene where he confronts his mom and it's like, where is any of this for the final boss? Any of the Tekken intros? I've seen the Titan fight and it's not there either. If this character had a lot more of that raw emotion, this would be a very different video, and I'd have a very different opinion. His slavery and trauma having this long-standing effect on him would have been interesting, amazing even. But I don't believe his characterization is supporting that. I mean, the lines themselves are drier than dirt. Or, perhaps Ben Starr just doesn't have what it takes in him to give this character. Unless it's that one scene. I don't know, but I swear people overinflate his performance just because he's an internet personality. Just as the case for that overhyped, overrated, lame-wad Luke from Street Fighter 6, that petulant piece of f***. Just look at that wind pose. It's as boring as an episode of one of those prestige shows like Shogun and Silo and The Wire. Oh yeah, I went there. All those shows are hour-long slogs of absolutely f***. Oh, yeah. Crappy character design. You know, speaking of Miguel, I thought we, as a society, were done with brown-haired, middle-aged male characters with stubble. I guess nobody cares about copying and pasting if it's trendy. But that's far from the only thing that Final Varsity 16 steals. But that's for our next section. This section is a bit of a preamble from the final one, and the main reason I started this video. In the final boss of Formal Pharmacy 16, Ignoramus, or whatever, used his own versions of summon powers against our cardboard protagonist. And each one is a trope. A trope done in the flattest way possible. You got your beam struggle, your push struggle, your blade lock, and the one I want to focus on real quick is the flurry punch. Or pummel duel as TV Tropes puts it. As Asura's Wrath has the same against the game's resident badass, August. Now, to a layman or laywoman or lay they them, there isn't too much different between these two. But that's where you're wrong, lay individual. Let me break it down. In Asura's Wrath, the movements are clear, the flow of the battle is clear, and there is a struggle, as in, an actual back and forth between the two that slowly goes in Asura's favor. But that's after he takes a few punches. But in Frontal Fallacy 16, Clive doesn't even punch. He just stands there, looking like his gravelly, gritty self while the screen is filled with obnoxious effects and motion blur. Every frame a mess. With the final hit lacking any impact since Kingdom Hearts Ultimania is covered by garbage and damage numbers, him flying back as if someone lightly shoved him. Look what happens to August. It's incomparable, and this garbage is from the final boss. In fact, all these QTEs lack impact in terms of damage done in Clive's struggle. It's as if he's barely even trying. Just like Ben Starr. While it may make him seem more badass, it's my humble and objectively correct opinion that Asura being beaten, hit, and slammed and always getting back up makes him much more of a badass than this grouchy crybaby, "Oh, I killed my brother with this hard-to-control power when I was like 10, meaning it isn't really my fault at all. My brother is alive, actually, meaning this stupid redemption arc is entirely pointless." Freaking Frey from Forspoken has a better redemption arc, but I'm not getting into another side tangent than side tangent. Future video. Maybe. But we're missing the one final piece of this mediocre puzzle. And now, for the whole reason I made this video. The climaxes. The penultimate battle against these men and their creators. And each battle culminating in one reality-shattering punch. Let's compare. After all those copy-pasted tropes, the arena darkens to fit the tone. The atmosphere thick with the notion that this exchange will be the last. After some generic dialogue, and one of the dumbest lines to be uttered in a Final Fantasy game, Clive hurls his sword at mystical Ultimate LP Legend, piercing him through. He then winds up one final blow, one all-encompassing strike to seal this foolish god's fate, and It's the weakest looking thing ever. The slow-mo completely ruining the impact, and Ulti here looks like he's getting an unwanted lick from his dog. And to cap it all off, all sense of immersion is torn asunder by this stupid pop-up. Yeah, I know. I fucking saw it. Now, before we compare the post-boss lines, let's jump to Asura's Wrath. After one of the greatest QTEs ever, the arena turns white, oddly, a direct opposite of 16's arena. What's also a direct contrast is the music. 16 going for this generic bombastic track lifted straight from 15. No, seriously, listen. But Asura's Wrath goes for this slow, somber track playing now, almost as if the game already knows the outcome of this duel. Chakra Vartan, the true final villain of the story, transforms into this alien, yet oddly human appearance, his final form. After a grueling back and forth, Asura finally gets the upper hand, and at last delivers the final blow, and this hit, animated infinitely better than 16's, isn't even the final hit. After that hit, the fight goes on in this amazing segment where these alternate QTEs pop up. These aren't for you, no, these are for Chakra Vartan. It's as if the game itself is fighting back against Asura, aka you. But it's not enough, and the god fails enough QTEs so that Asura can deliver one final punch, one final strike to end it all, and if you know this game, you know that this punch isn't the final punch either. This punch, animated better and shot better, and is infinitely upon infinites more impactful than the one in Final Fantasy XVI, isn't even the final blow. But look at that. Look how similar Claude and Asura's poses are. This is why I made this video. I've seen so many nut jobs compare these two games together, and it's an absolute travesty because one of these is an artistic masterpiece, which is a celebration of anime and high action tropes, and the other is a dime a dozen mediocre rehash of those tropes. To put it simply, one is art and one is fart, and you should know which is which by now. Anyway, the punch did though knock Mithra, Asura's daughter, the catalyst for Asura's rage, out of Chakra Vartan, and the two have one final aside.
If you kill him, all the mantra will be lost. Without mantra, you cannot survive.
But you will still live.
His choice made, a father's sacrifice to save what he holds most dear. Asura bursts toward the weakened god, pulling back and punching Chakra Vartan with every ounce of his being, the screen turning red, the music cutting out completely, the main sound being you mashing that circle button. Asura's face contorting with wrath, the burst finally being achieved with a new kanji that I believe means Dohatsuten, meaning boiling with rage. In one of the best animated follow-throughs ever, Chakra Vartan spins around completely, half his face being ripped off, and he stumbles back, defeated. It is absolutely perfect, especially compared to that weak shit in Hope This Is the Final Fantasy XVI. This whole video could have been about that single punch, but delving deeper into 16, I found all these things that are just lame. Not just compared to Asura's Wrath, but fiction as a whole. I've played better games, and I've seen better anime since people call 16 anime. And this game, this mediocre crap, just pales in comparison to all of them. Just look at the final lines for each. 16 goes for this general, vague drivel about humans are flawed, but that's okay. While Asura's Wrath goes for this deeply personal and deeply emotional line.
My wrath is finally
Fantasy Final 16's title drop means absolutely nothing, while Asura's Wrath isn't even a title drop and yet means so much more than Final Fantasy 16 ever will.
Durga. I'll be home soon.
I tried to capture footage for everything I could, but for the brunt of it, I borrowed footage from Gamer's Little Playground for the Final Fantasy XVI final boss, and DarkPlayerBrett's video on all the Asura's Wrath bosses. I have no desire to play Final Fantasy XVI, and I would have loved to get my own footage of Asura's Wrath, but Capcom's too busy over-monetizing Street Fighter and crapping out Monster Hunter games, and crapping all over Dragon's Dogma to re-release this masterpiece, so yeah, thank you to those two. I know this video won't get many views, and really, this is all just a personal therapy session for me, a way to get my thoughts and grievances out in a creative way. And so I can finally say, after all this, that my wrath is gone. Until I find something else to hate.